back to talking about childhood illnesses that are on the ride, the food
Yes.
sensitivities that are on the ride, what's going on in our biological makeup? And can that part be reprogrammed using some of these techniques?
Absolutely. One of the big issues that we have is the allergies that are springing up, and there's all different kinds of allergies, from asthma to food allergies to blah, blah, blah. Here's a simple point from an immunological understanding. An allergen, just like the stuff in peanuts that causes irritation, or the oil in poison ivy or poison oak, allergens themselves are not very toxic. They're not a problem. It's our body's overreaction to allergens, and because the immune system is designed to destroy the whatever is affecting our biology and our health. It destroys foreign things, but it also can, if you have a cancer cell, it can destroy your cancer cell. So it's not just a self, not self. The immune system is designed to eliminate anything that's attacking the system, whether it's from self or not. Allergens are what are called antigens, which promote an immune response. But allergens themselves are not really toxic. The peanut stuff isn't toxic. The oil on the poison ivy plant is not really toxic.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, how come I make a toxic response to it? And the answer is this. The immune system can fight cells or non-cellular stuff. Let's say viruses or proteins or toxins. These aren't cells. Or the immune system can fight cells like a cancer cell or a parasite that something comes in. And so here's what the story is, and this is very critical. People have to understand it, is that the system is divided, fighting non-cellular things like antigens, like allergens, or fighting cellular things like cancer cells and parasites. Well, there's information in the immune system to control the direction of the immune system. Should I fight the cells or should I fight the antigens? Okay? Well, here's the interesting part. Think about this, it's very interesting, is that the placenta that is implanted in a woman's uterus is not tissue from self. The placenta comes from the embryo. The embryo is genetically different than the mother. Well, the relevance is simple. If I had different cells sticking to my uterus, that would be an invasion of foreign cells. My immune system is designed to kill those foreign cells. So how can I get pregnant? And the answer is there's a switch that will shut off the immune system so it doesn't fight cells. Okay? It still fights the other things such as the bacteria and stuff like that. So here's the point. When a woman is pregnant, the foreign cells secrete what are called cytokines, hormones, that shut off the immune system for the mother to fight cells. So that means that the mother's immune system is now going to tolerate the foreign, the implant.
Yes.
But in the process, it creates a bunch of immune cells called helper cells, but they're called H2 helper cells versus H1. H2 helper cells are designed to fight parasites, okay? But they're not designed to attack the conventional bacteria and things like that, the viruses and stuff like that. And why is that relevant? Because the type 2 cells adjust the immune system so the mother doesn't reject the placenta. So when a baby is born, the baby's immune system is also filled with helper cells type 2, which prevent the conventional response of the immune system. But they support the response against parasites and against small things like allergens, okay? So the idea about this is there are two different kinds of antibodies that I can make that I want to talk about. One is called IgG, and that's immunoglobulin G, which fights, those are antibodies. They fight the viruses and the toxins and all those things, and allergens, okay? And then there's one called IgE, immunoglobulin E, but that's the one to fight parasites, and that connects to what are called mast cells. Mast cells in your body release a chemical that kills parasites, but they also cause hives. They also change the blood vessel flow. So here's the point. Normal birth. The child comes out, the body of the child is filled with helper cells type 2, okay, which don't support the regular IgG response. They support IgE, parasite response. The relevance is in a normal situation, the baby, especially when it comes through the birth canal, when it nurses with the mother, when it's in its environment, is picking up bacteria and things from the environment. Those minor infections switch the baby from type 2 to type 1, which is designed to make the regular antibodies. But in today's world, we keep it too clean. Mm-hmm. And as a result, the baby is born with these type 2 cells, but doesn't get the normal infections that will switch it to type 1. So an allergen, which is an antigen, if it comes in the body when the type 2 cells are prevalent, it will make IgE antibodies, which are the allergic response. But if the allergen comes in when the baby has already created a type 1 response, which is normal antibody production, the allergen doesn't make IgE, it makes IgG, so I'm not allergic to it. So the allergic response comes from IgE, and I say, well, where does that come from? I say, well, that's when the system is in type 2. And I said, well, so what's the relevance? Baby is born with type 2 because that was the type that prevented the rejection of the placenta by the mother. Mm-hmm. Normally, then the baby should get exposed to all kinds of bacteria and things, especially through breastfeeding and all kinds of things, should be inoculated with bacteria. This would switch the system to type 1, make a normal antibody response. But we have created such a clean environment, it's called the hygiene hypothesis, mm-hmm. that then the baby doesn't get the normal exposures to these other things that would switch it to type 1. That means it stays in type 2 for a longer period of time. If the allergen shows up while the baby's in type 2, it will make an allergic response to the allergen. If the allergen shows up when the baby's in type 1 after having experienced infections, then it makes a normal antibody against it. So the whole idea is this. The amount of allergens that are affecting babies and causing them to have so much allergic responses is not because of the allergen, it's because the baby is not given a chance to have an infection. It's not switching over. So because our vision and parenting is, keep it clean, sterilize everything, wash it down with germicide, all these kinds of things like that. And it turns out, well, now that you've done that, you prevented the switching from type 2 to go back to type 1. Right. You're creating a situation for allergies. And this is interesting. This is why kids that grow up with pets are healthier than kids that don't grow up with pets. Because while you may spray Lysol on everything around the house, you're not going to spray the pet. Yeah. And so the pet is an inoculation device. It will carry things that the child will pick up. So it's really important to recognize to have a good, healthy child's immune system is to expose it to bacteria, things like that. It's okay if it gets a little sick. That's the immune system working. Yes. But we want to prevent that. Well, I say, well, now that you prevented it, guess what? Now you're not allowing the switch to occur. So now the big problem is this. Large numbers of children are being born with type 2 not switching back to type 1 fast enough. As a result, when allergens show up like peanut butter or poison oak or any of those things like that, instead of making a regular antibody, they'll make an allergic IgE antibody. And so the issue is the issue is not allowing the child's immune system to kick in because we're so protective that we keep it too clean. So this is where the big problem comes from with most allergies today is it's what they call the hygiene hypothesis. You make it too clean and it's not going to work right. So that's number one. Okay. Number two is the immune system is an evolutionary device. It's not completely formed when you're born. It's evolving still. The tendency for people is to inoculate their children with vaccines. Mm-hmm. And the problem is you throw in a vaccine loaded with all kinds of crap into this baby whose system is not really ready to handle that. Mm-hmm. You interfere with the development of the immune system. And we have, oh my God, we should, inoculate. I think there's 65 different vaccines now before a child is 9 or something like that. this is crazy because what people don't understand, I'm going to tell you the secret right now. The secret is this: and to create its own immune activation, but not through injecting things under the skin. The immune activation is due to the tonsils that are in the throat. People say, oh, the tonsils are there to fight infection. It's like, no, that's completely wrong. The tonsils don't fight infection. The tonsils invite the infection in. The tonsils are nature's way of creating an immune response. Everything that goes into that child's mouth passes through the tonsils, by the tonsils, and the tonsils then make a recording of everything in the environment. And this is what the design is. And this is why infants will stick everything they can into their mouths. It's a reflex behavior. And what are they doing? They're creating an immune vaccination, oral vaccine. And this is the design of the system. And so, and it's interesting because usually in history, by the time you're 10, 12 years old, you've tasted everything in the environment because those people back then didn't travel miles away from their house. And so the child sampled the world by the time they were 10, 12, or 11 years, around that age. I go, why is it relevant? Because that's when the immune system starts to shut itself down in the hyper growth state that it's been. The thymus starts to get smaller. That's the immune system, the center of all the education. Well, the relevance was then if we protect children for too much, then the immune system starts to shut itself down around 10 to 12. Our ability to make immune responses is reduced. And so the whole idea is this. When I was young, and that was a long time ago, we played in the dirt. Kids played we played everywhere. And the whole idea was playing and living out in that environment, especially with pets, inoculated the system and allowed us to have a good immune response. When you inject a needle of stuff under the skin, what's the relevance? The tonsils are the learning center. And so now you've created an abnormal situation because the body is monitoring everything all the time. And it says, where did that come from? There's no indication it came through any of the openings of the body where the immune system is built up to read what's coming in. So when you stick something under the skin, you're messing with the immune system. So I'm not saying vaccines, no. I'm saying oral vaccines, yes. But injection vaccines are really bypassing the normal route and creating problems themselves. So they interfere with the normal function of the immune system. So what are we doing? Well, we're making the environment too clean. And then secondarily, we're bypassing the immune system by injecting vaccines under the skin, which is not the way the cell system works. And therefore, we're sabotaging our own biological system with conventional belief.
I have spent hours upon hours, days upon days researching some of these topics, and you brought to this conversation new information that has not come across any of my Dr. Google searches. So thank you so much for that piece about the oralness that is needed, with the tonsils being the recording center for the body. That is fantastic information that I'm really glad to have been present with and to be able to share.
Well, I hope you share it because, as I said, there's such a misinformation in medical school because I taught in a medical school, right? And I taught about, when we talked about tonsils, we did talk to their protection. If things get in, they protect you like they're fighting the antigens. I go, no. They're learning about the antigens.
And there's a difference.
How you educate the system. And so there's a whole difference between fighting the antigens and learning about the antigens, and that mistake turns everything upside down. That's why the failure to understand that if vaccines were going to be created, they should all be oral vaccines that allow the system to use what was nature designed.